So today I basically will be talking a bit about persistency methods. If you have any suggestions at all to future content, please let me know either in the comment section on YouTube, or hit me up on Twitter via DM, or let me know on Twitch chat, or the TrustedSec Discord. If you haven't joined the TrustedSec Discord, you should 100% do that. Actually, let me drop the little link here in the Twitch chat. For sure, I could explain a bit more about DLL sideloading. We will actually talk about it a bit today because sideloading is a very good persistency technique these days, especially for more overt operations, or yeah, at least to some degree. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna grab my tea and then we'll get started. So heads up, I'm actually trying to quit coffee. Trying to reduce my coffee intake as much as possible. I started to realize that when I wake up in the morning and I have a headache because I haven't drinking coffee yet, maybe it's time to stop drinking coffee. So I have heavily reduced my coffee intake and coffee intake in general to try to get away from it. So that's how that works. Okay, so let's basically get into it. Right, so persistency methods aren't really talked that much about because there are, well, I'm gonna assume here, right? But there's obviously a bunch of known typical persistency methods. Both userland and high privilege one, either creating a system service, a scheduled task service. There's a bunch of rig keys you can use, and there's a lot to go through. But the thing is that persistency methods, I think at least. They're not necessarily less and less used, but I think credentials, in a sense, is a way better persistency. At least if you already have internal presence to re-access a system and actually doing something on disk. But that's maybe a whole other discussion. I don't have anything in particular that I read or work on to keep up to date. Generally, just Twitter. And every now and then there's some sort of blog post or article describing a new technique or method. And in my mind, there's multiple categories, but there's the first category would be, is this a userland persistency, meaning that this is a persistency that should work under normal conditions as a normal account, not an administrative account. And then there's persistency techniques for, if you're elevated, if you have a local administrator account, or if you have some sort of high privilege in the domain that lets you do local admin stuff on the computer. And then once you're done with that, there would be, I would always, a lot of tools like before maybe, or before, maybe not before, but generally criminals tend to do auto persistency. So they're packers, cryptors, rats, whatever, they often install a persistency the first time they run to make sure that you don't lose the target. This is something I would not practice at all, either on a pen test or on a red team or an external engagement. You should never do anything on the system until you are fully aware of the capabilities you are. Like you are basically, every time you're targeting a machine, you are playing on somebody's home turf. You're playing away, or whatever it's called, right? You're playing on somebody's home turf. You never know what sort of EDR solution, CM solution, AV solution they have installed. You have no idea to which degree logs are being stored and alerted on, right? So never ever assume or persistency is something you always should do post exploitation, post infiltration, post compromise, whatever. It shouldn't be, in my mind at least, it shouldn't be done automatically, and that's one of the things that I think separates us we doing red team engagements. Maybe some proper threat actors, and the more low level skids just spreading rats all around the place trying to get bots or whatever, right? That's what separates us, in terms that we make as little noise as possible when entering the doorway, right? You don't enter the doorway with double bazookas and a machine gun. You enter the doorway in yellow vest and saying you need to take a look at the electrician's panel. For sure, right? So you wanna drop as you wanna trigger as little possible IOCs as you can. So let's talk a bit around userland persistencies. So of course you can look up all the typical resources. There's probably like 100+ different rig keys that you could use. Hey, the Joker, welcome. There's a bunch of, obviously the startup folder, you have the scheduled tasks, and then on the higher privilege side you have system level or service tasks, service launches. And then obviously when you're high privilege, you can modify every application of the system, and it's super easy to either do DLL sideloading or DLL hijacking. So let's talk a bit about DLL proxying or DLL sideloading. So I did a blog post that around this, DDL actually, a while back, and I released it with the tool, a C# tool to help you in every sense generate these payloads. And why don't I have internet? Oh, is this a DNS issue? Oh no, I'm trying to proxify stuff. I don't want to proxify stuff. There we go. So I did a blog post for Red Teaming UK, basically explaining how you can run your favorite C# whatever in a native application using DLL sideloading. And what DLL sideloading is that instead of doing what's known as DLL hijacking, where an application, due to some fault or by logic, would look for a certain DLL and start in a root folder and then sort of recursively look down for that DLL until it finds it, and then you can hijack that attempt by placing a DLL in a location where an application is expected to load it. That's cool, right? But sideloading, you would do the exact same technique, but you would do it towards an application which is installed a place where you can modify and access and copy and paste the DLLs. Because sideloading basically I think I made a great graph. This is basically sideloading, right? So the application attempts to load the DLL based on names. You supply it with your malicious DLL with the same name. And if you only do that, the application will throw an error because the application is looking for specific functions or function within that DLL. So in this example, a legitimately assigned application is looking for the getFunkyData function in a DLL. And if it doesn't find that function, it's going to crash, it's going to throw an error, whatever. So what we want to do is that we want to create a DLL that redirects the functions we know the program is going to be looking for to the original DLL. And then at the same time do code execution within that process. So you're basically tricking an application to sideload your malware or whatever code, shellcode, whatever you want into that memory. And I can tell you straight off the bat, a signed application from a trusted, legitimate company, say Microsoft, or you can even trick, if you have high privileges, you can do this towards EDR solutions, AV solutions, right? If the application doesn't check the signature of the DLL it loads. Those applications who are signed and legitimate can get away with a lot of stuff. Look at Teams. Teams can freaking run 12 processes at the same time, and since it's Microsoft, no EDR solution is gonna trigger on that. If I created a malware that wasn't signed and I did it can be both. It totally depends on what application you're targeting and where the install path that application is. So a legitimate and signed applications can get away with basically anything. I know I have a specific application that I know can bypass almost every EDR in terms of touching LSAS. So if I just download that application, I sideload into it, and with that application I can dump LSAS, Microsoft, CrowdStrike, nobody will complain because that application is so trusted. And I don't want to say more than that, but yeah, right. So you're basically sort of piggybacking on the trusted applications. And when I wrote this in a while back, no EDR solution, obviously I don't know that, but I have never met an EDR solution at that time that would detect sideloading. And then I know for a fact that Microsoft, ATP, Advanced Threat Protection, does detect it now. There are definitely mitigations to get around it, but if you just do sideloading now, in many instances, Microsoft Advanced Threat Protection will catch you out. But yeah, so that's the gist of it, right? And why this is so powerful is in most situations. Let's take a look at Teams and OneDrive, applications by Microsoft. They install in the freaking app data folder. The app data folder is user accessible, which means when Teams ain't running and Teams ain't locking DLLs out, I can modify, I can copy paste, I can delete, remove, create in that folder without nothing complaining. So that's one really powerful way of doing persistency. And it's also customizable to the target, right? So once you land your initial beacon on the target, you start doing initial illumination. You want to do, you want to do, obviously, if you're using Cobalt Strike, you want to use BOF and API calls as much as possible. You don't want to spawn sub-processes, you don't want to do injection, you want to stay quiet, and you want to do proper enumeration. And then you might find out that, this application or that application or known applications who are generally known to be installed in the app data folder and run off the app data folder is on the system. Hey, what's up, PSV? And then you would create these specific proxy sideloading payloads for that application, and then you would plant it on the system. And the next time that application's run, obviously you would target an application that runs, either runs on startup, or that the target is using, to make sure that you actually get payload execution. If you backdoor or sideload an application that the target doesn't use, then you're not going to get persistency. It's going to be very, very coin tossy, right? But in general, you can, like Teams isn't, has been known to be abused for this, and I think like a blog post last week talked about it. There are multiple DLLs within Teams that Teams looks for to load and looks for specific functions, and it starts looking in app data, which you can modify. Which is, again, basically what this blog post talks about. So I'm going to post this in the chat so you can have a read afterwards. I basically wrote the tool and explained the whole walkthrough process of how you find an application that is vulnerable to DLL sideloading, how you start looking at confirming that it is vulnerable, and then this tool here called Sharp DLL Proxy, which basically generates sort of a C template based off a DLL. So this will generate the C code needed to redirect the functions that the application is trying to call back to the original DLL and still have code execution. So take a look at this. This is pretty great. I haven't looked at it in a while. This is actually, almost a year old. Damn, this went fast. I feel like I wrote this yesterday. But yeah, take a look at this. It's pretty cool. And then, yeah, so that's sideloading, right? And this obviously works great in userland when you have applications that are installed in user accessible folders. In some scenarios, you can find that applications who are installed in program files still looks for resources in user accessible folders or directories. And obviously you could exploit that, but then you would have to identify it. A lot of this can be identified in a lab environment. So say you enumerate installed applications on the beacon or on the host, and then you recreate that in the lab environment, and then you figure out, okay, he has FileZilla 3.5.6 or whatever. That version of FileZilla tries to load this DLL from that folder. We can write to that folder, and then you have a very specific persistency technique for that host. And what's cool about that as well is that if you do this, it's going to be super hard, especially if you have a couple of hosts with very specific persistency techniques. If one of them gets compromised, it's going to be harder for the defending team to figure out, okay, this is the persistency technique used. Okay, let's search for that technique across machines. Okay, there's no other machine with that same persistency technique because it's very host specific, which is cool. Yeah, so take a look at this blog post. Anyhow, and the thing I actually want to talk about today is a super old technique that I freaking love. So yeah, I want to show another trick as well. So if you want to do something like this is so KISS, so I can't recall this, if KISS stands for keep it stupid simple or keep it simple stupid. I don't care, either one. This is a sort of KISS thing that I love. You can actually rename the startup folder. So if you have EDRs or antivirus solutions looking for startup, let's say you want to drop your malware straight into the startup folder, many EDR AV solutions will trigger on that because it ain't normal. You can just freaking rename this to not startup, And that will most likely break a lot of detections, a lot of static detections and alerts. And this not startup folder will still work just as a normal startup folder. Drop anything in there, it will start up on next reboot, but it isn't called startup anymore. So I mean, if you're looking for stuff dropped in startup, you're fucked. So that's a super simple little trick that, you know, if you're doing a pen test with some basic, against some basic AV solutions or whatever, and you don't want to put a lot of effort into your persistency techniques. Usually you don't need persistency techniques on a pen test, but yeah, this is one of the ways you can do it. So this is pretty cool. So let's just rename this back to startup to be sure. So that's a cool technique. And then so way back, people talked about shortcuts, using shortcuts either with payloads embedded into the shortcut. So say you would create a new shortcut. This shortcut would open, I don't know, let's say it would open WinRAR or whatever. Which item, and then name of the shortcut will be WinRAR. If you open it, you can actually say, you know, cmd.exe /c and then calc and, sorry, I can't type. Jesus, I can't type. There we go. And it would run calc and WinRAR. Oh, okay, I fucked it up, but usually it does, right? So you can modify the target location to do multiple things, and that would be a solid persistency. So you can either modify an existing shortcut, create a new one, and I also seen methods where they inject your whole PowerShell stager into the target location of a shortcut. Pretty common, or it's a known technique. What's lesser known is freaking shortcuts, shortcut key. This is so freaking cool. Let me show this. Okay, so let's say I create a new shortcut. I created to target cmd.exe, and I'm just gonna modify it to run calculator so we can get like a better. This should run calc if I'm not, Okay, that runs calc, right? If you go into properties here and you go to shortcut key, you can select a keyboard combination or key to trigger this shortcut. So I could say Control Alt, no, Shift. Why is Control? Okay, so Control Alt is a GUI specific limitation. You can modify this shortcut key to be whatever you want in code, but when you do it through the Windows Explorer GUI, it's gonna force you the Control Alt in front. Whatever. Let's just show you. So apply. Okay. If I now click Control Alt V, give it a second. Yeah, that's exactly what it is possible. So I don't know why it triggered now. Didn't I? Control Alt V. No, I did Shift. So Control Alt V will now trigger that shortcut and open Calculator. And yes, you can do this via code, and you can change the shortcut key to be whatever you want. So instead of placing a file, you could have persistency with the key combination that you know your target host or target person is going to be using. So that could be the Windows button. If the guy uses the Windows button, you can bind Windows button to open your application. Obviously, you will break some stuff and you have to fix that in some sort of code logic. It's very custom, but you can. And now you can do this in coding. So obviously, you can do this in PowerShell. It would look something like this. So I could create a PowerShell link. So I will. So I'm not a COM object specialist. But anyhow, so you can create a new vscript shell instance, and you can create a shortcut to this folder. It could target CMD. It could have the arguments to open calculator, and then it could be bind to Control V. So let's bind this to, like, I don't know, F5. Oops. Let's bind this to F5 instead. If I save this and I run this, hopefully it will run at the first try, because I haven't tested this. Yeah, so we created a PowerShell shortcut, and now I don't need to run it one time or anything. When this is written to disk, the keyboard combination thing, it's instant. So if I click F5 now, I should open calc. There we go, it opened CMD. So I fucked up my my thing here with the arguments and stuff, but yeah, it should be other way around, like this. If I do F5, it will take a couple of seconds, but then it will open calculator. So this is a super neat persistency way. And you not only, of course, can you do this in PowerShell, you can do it with macro. So you could use this for initial delivery. You could create a shortcut that would open some applications in some file in some weird place. You can use the shortcut to use run DLL to run some weird DLL that you dropped on disk. And then you can just bind it to a key combination, and when the user presses that key combination, your payload will be executed. Now obviously finding a proper key combination could be hard. The thing is that I haven't tested this. So if I go to, F5 is the refresh button in browsers. That combination doesn't work anymore now. I broke F5 on this computer. This computer now only runs calculator when I try F5. So I'm spamming F5, the Firefox instance ain't refreshing, I'm only getting calculators. So not only do you have to revert this instantly after you get your shell execution, that would be sort of an auto-run script in Cobalt Strike. So as soon as you get a callback from this specific host, you would unset this key. So if I remove this, apply, and I go over here, I click F5, now it refreshes. So you have to wipe it in code as well, rewriting the same file. So your initial execution could be in macro could be as simple as downloading, a picture, placing it in a temporary directory in app data, and then using run DLL against that picture, because the picture is actually a DLL. It just has the extension of a picture. Then you can use run DLL to run that DLL, and you're good. You got a payload execution. Simple stuff. Not only can you do this. Okay, so that is again going against what I just said. You should never have automatic persistency on the initial execution. This would be, or on the initial delivery, this would be execution and persistency, so you don't want that. So you could also do it in C#. So let's say after you've gotten your initial beacon, you could reflectively load this in C#. Obviously you can run it in PowerShell as well, using PowerPick or whatever in Cobalt. But you can run it in C#, and that would be the backdoor. Every time the user again uses that key combination, your payload will execute. And then obviously your payload would have to handle mutex for multiple instances, and your payload, or the auto execute of the payload, whatever, would have to unset this or mimic the functionality. So let's say you have, for some reason, you have Control-Alt-Delete binded for the shortcut. Okay, when the payload is executed, it should also open Task Manager to sort of redo that. So the host doesn't know what's going on. So if you're trying to do this in C#, you actually need to reference a COM object. So I think it's just called script something. Yeah, you have to reference Windows script host object model, and then once you've done that, you can just import it, or it's already imported actually. Yeah, I imported it earlier. And then you can reflectively load this using Cobalt Strike, and then you have your persistency method. So I like this. I think this is pretty neat. You would have to think of a couple of good key combinations that most users use within a day. Maybe copy-paste, most people use copy-paste. Maybe F5. Maybe, I don't know, freaking tab, caps lock, whatever. Caps lock maybe is a solid one. People don't use caps lock that much. Yeah, so you have to make the payload you're trying to execute very custom, but at the same time, I love this technique. Yeah, and then obviously I talked a bunch about the other stuff. Do I have anything more to add to this? I recall looking up like auto run or startup rig keys malware. I think there's a way back. I recall looking at a list. Trying to find a very specific list. Any questions related to this? Yeah, so there are so many rig keys you can use. And if you're... obviously all these are mapped, but totally depending on, again, once you land your beacon, you're enumerating the host. You could easily test this against Defender and know if the red keys are, frowned upon and will get detected or not. I think the red key list I'm looking for is like so old. Yeah, so let me find the teams. This one. I think about this. So this is a bit older, but it's basically the same stuff. Yeah. So you could combine this finding together with my blog post. So I've never find myself like so obviously when I'm doing internal penetration tests, the best persistency is always just credentials. I mean, if I can just access the system through like an initial host, or if I'm doing a pen test, that would be a tap device, or like a reverse VPN device on the network. Credentials in general is just good persistency. I do know that a lot of this is obviously super bad practice, but I have seen scenarios where I'm compromising a network, and I've seen either the actual global administrator account having a SPN set, and that can be in many cases indication of compromise. If it looks a bit too good, you might want to ask about previous compromise or previous alerts or whatever. I myself haven't experienced the case where there was initial compromise or was compromised by somebody else, but I have a buddy of mine who found a high privilege, like the global administrator account having an SPN, talking about compromise, and then they actually ending up finding out that there's another set of hands on the keyboard on the network doing something. I'm not sure for persistency, but I love CCM. So on networks where SCCM is deployed, it's either much easier to just go after accounts that do have access to SCCM, or a lot of the time I could actually use spool sample against CCCMs, and then relay that spool sample authentication request from the SCCM computer account onto a SCCM sub endpoint, or like a sub site, I think it's called. Because sometimes, or actually a lot of times, I have seen SCCM computer accounts having admin access on other sub SCCM sites' computers. So just using spool sample and some random credentials that you cracked, you can get access to SCCM subsites. If you have access to those, you can most likely get the main SCCM site out of memory, credentials, and then you're done. If you own SCCM and SCCM is actually deployed onto the AD environment, then you basically got the keys to the kingdom. So if you don't know what SCCM is, it's Microsoft System Center Configuration Manager. It's basically, if you've seen Intune, SCCM and Intune is managed together. So Intune can be used to push software updates and applications out to SCCM enrolled devices on a large network. They could be used for patch management. They could be used for service in general, tickets, support. And Enigma has a great wow, is it already like 5 years old? This still works great. So has this great SCCM post by using a PowerShell script called Power SCCM, which really makes it easy to find main SCCM sites, authenticate to them, and push packages out to computers enrolled within SCCM. And this is a major milestone, because if I can, like, how easy is it for a threat actor to use something like this to deploy ransomware? This is basically a freaking gold mine for ransomware deployment, right? First, I could push a package that would disable all AV using servers, just disabling the server straight out, or doing some GP editing straight up, and then I could just push the malware across the entire fleet and run it as system, and you're basically fucked. So SCCM is great, but you should I would actually, I would treat. I got a question about this earlier, um, about SCCM access, and you should treat SCC accounts with SCCM access as domain administrator accounts, because that's basically what they are. If you could deploy any package to all enrolled computers within SCCM as admin, they're more than domain administrators. Like they're, yeah. So it wasn't. This is using the PowerShell module. There's the one not using the PowerShell module. I actually most of the time find myself not using the PowerShell version because I don't know what's behind it. So I do it manually. So here is the article on him going through SCCM manually and showing me how to push applications. I've used this. Obviously, you, if you're doing an engagement, you shouldn't push fucking 800 Cobalt Strike beacons to the network. That's just stupid. But if you're using this to reach the domain controllers, say the domain controllers are actually enrolled as devices on SCCM, seen that multiple times, this would be a way to get actual domain administrator privileges by pushing packages to the domain controllers. They would run a system. You would get a system beacon. You could obviously local dissync, dump anti-DS, all that good stuff. This article is really good, explaining what you should do. He pushes a PowerShell stager. I guess you could do that. I think I just did just an installer file as well would work. But this is pretty cool. Isn't really persistency though. I mean, technically it can be used as a persistency, because if you got access to SCCM, then you do have access to all the computers, but technically not like a directly persistency. Yeah, this is really cool. Freaking Enigma is a legend. You probably heard that alias everywhere else than from me. And then there's a technique using persistency wallpaper. Screensavers, sorry. So there's a reg key for setting screensavers, and oh, that's actually pretty cool. Do you know? So let's take a normal exe file. So let me just copy out calc.exe or something. So calc.exe. Does it work standalone? Yeah, it does. The exe extension works just as fine under SCR for Screensaver. That's pretty cool, right? This could actually, I think this could be used to bypass app locker. And it for sure would fuck up a lot of detection rules. I mean, if you have rules based that is dependent on an exe being ran to do something, this is freaking gold. SCR works great. That's a cool trick if you haven't seen that. It's an old trick, I think. Yeah, so SCR file extension runs the same as exe. So anyhow, so you could actually use, I can send you this blog post. There are a bunch of screensaver reg keys that you could use for persistency. So I guess that could be used for initial delivery as well. If you're trying to sell that this is a picture, change the icon to a picture, make the exe open the picture from memory, and you're basically good to go. That is, by definition, a screensaver. For non-technical users, opening a screensaver sounds a lot less risky than opening an executable. Now again, you have SmartScreen and that stuff, so yeah, you have to either unzip it or patch it in mem. Not patch it in mem, but run something besides that execution to add the zone identifier. So have I turned SmartScreen off? So I haven't played with SmartScreen for so long. Yeah, so you have to download them to make the SmartScreen stuff work. Trick there is that if you download the zip file and extract it, then I think the zone identifier for that will be different. So actually, let's try that. Let's zip this up and let's upload it to some free file hosting website. Whatever. Thank you. Let's upload that calc. Temp email. Let's see if it supports 1. Let's see if it supports that. So, if I do recall correctly, when you download new files off the internet, the zone identifier, which if I recall correctly, is like a freaking, technically like a file extension or like, oh, what's it called? I can show you how to show it, but what? So, do I have to request the download link as well? What the fuck is this? This is so stupid. They want my email. They want to sell my email. Well, sell this. Wow, that's so stupid. So I should get like a download confirmation as well. These guys just want to harvest your freaking email so hard. Okay, let's download this. Download, right? Oh, sorry. I should use copy link. I should use Edge for maximum safety, right? Oh my god. Seriously? Let's request a new one. I've already used it up. Not sure about this messing around. Did I close the email? No. Yeah, I did. Did I? Yeah, let's just see. Oh my god. Thank you, ADS alternate data stream. So a zone identifier is something defined in an alternate data stream for each file. So I think it's like a numeric system, like 1, 2, 3, and depending on how the zone identifier is set, SmartScreen in Windows will trigger. So we can play. Actually, let's play with that after this. So let me just try to get the fucking download link for this file again. Jesus. Request the download link. There we go. Download link for calc.zip. Let's download that using Edge. Download it. Open the file. And then open it. You see it just runs. As if I uploaded the file. If I uploaded the file without a zip, it will prompt me for a SmartScreen saying that this file is, you know, from the internet, and that's true because you didn't unzip it on your computer. So I think you can use both CMD and PowerShell to view zone identifier files. So view zone identifier. There we go. Blah blah blah. Not interested in that. I want to use CMD then. CMD show zone identifier. There we go. So this is the SmartScreen. You could usually get the download.exe straight off. Oh, is it just /r? Yeah, it is. So let's move to the downloads directory. You can see I have a zone identifier file for a calc.zip, right? So let's just unzip this. And let's look at calc.cr. I do not have a zone identifier file for that because it was extracted locally. So if I've downloaded the executable straight up, it would have a zone identifier file. And let's try to type this out. It's type, right? Do I have to open it in Notepad? Yeah, there we go. So this defines, the zone ID, and where it was downloaded from. So that's, let me try to upload an exe just to show you what SmartScreen stuff looks like, if it still works. So, file hosting, this was a fucking pain. Maybe I can find another free file hosting site that doesn't require me typing in my email every other minute. Upload and share files for free. Thank you very much. Let's upload this calc file. SCR. Let's hope it doesn't hate that extension. It doesn't. Let's download. Sorry. Let's download that. Free download. Slow download is fine. The download started. It's downloaded. Okay, let's check that. So identifier file. You can see it has a SmartScreen. So if I try to open this now, it will say, what? Is it because I have SmartScreen turned off? Usually it would prompt me with like a SmartScreen. Maybe the file extension makes it so that it doesn't prompt me. It definitely has the SmartScreen zone identifier, or not zone identifier. It doesn't have the SmartScreen alternative data stream. Let's actually try that again. That was a bit weird. So let's try to upload something again. Upload more files. Yes, please. Let's try an exe. Maybe it's because it's signed as well. I might want to try with something that isn't signed. I know I'm getting off the topic here, but this is definitely interesting if it turns off initial payload delivery. Alright, so let's look at that calc 1 again. Same, has a SmartScreen. If I try to open it, it doesn't complain. So either SmartScreen is disabled, or it's because the this is signed by Microsoft. Either way, so yeah, zone identifier and alternative data stream for that is pretty cool. Yeah, any more tricks or tips? Yeah, I don't think I have much more tricks or tips in this prepared, at least. Any sort of other questions or suggestions of something we could look into? A lot more pops up when I do get suggestions. If you want, I could share this. You can Google your way towards this demo, though. I mean, creating shortcuts isn't hard at all in any programming language. Unless C, of course, because then everything's hard. Hashtag C# dev. Spitting on C. Yeah, SmartScreen. It should be like device or malicious sites. So it's definitely on. That's weird. Probably because the file is signed. Do I have anything weird that I can download? I guess I could upload this, right? The shortcut demo file. So let's try that, because that is definitely not signed. Fuck that. I want to upload more files, and then I want a shortcut demo, upload it. Let's rename it to, that's probably, yeah, that's probably some like premium feature. Let's download that. Free download, slow speed. Let's clear the download directory, because it could harm. Let's keep it. Is Google's so question from Tarantinotorix. Tarantinotorix. This question ain't about persistency. It would be nice to see how you set up a VM, like a Linux attacking VM or Windows dev VM. Do you have some sort of automated process in place to help you? So the short answer is no. I actually use VMware Workstation. I paid for my own license. Just because I did it like way back, so I didn't bother using the company license one. It ain't that expensive. I think it's like 60-80 bucks. And I think I know where most of people get their VMware license from, so I wanted to be that guy who actually bought it. And I'm super happy with VMware. For me, it's the built-in drag and drop functionality. I like the GUI and the user experience more than I do like VirtualBox, even though VirtualBox is free. And how I usually do is that I have multiple Windows instances, so I have like a lab machine and a domain controller on the same subnet within the VMware workstation. You know what? I could probably do a whole stream just showing you how to set it up, how to set up like how I would set up my attacker stuff. It ain't nothing fancy though. I know a lot of people have like super complex and intricate setups. I don't have that at all. Mine is pretty stupid simple. Let's just open and see here. Wow. So you can see SmartScreen, and let's try to open this now. Yeah, so now you get the Windows protected your PC. Microsoft Defender SmartScreen prevented an unrecognized app from starting. Running this app might put your PC at risk. This is the whole dangerous stuff, right? If we open Notepad, Notepad, and then we do shortcut demo and then Sona Identifier. Oh my god, are we that bad? Really? Sorry, I'm off. Hoping. We can see again, it says Zone ID 3, refer blah blah blah. I do think if we actually delete the SmartScreen ADS stream or alternative data stream, this will all go away. We won't get the SmartScreen prompt. But I want to test with a zip. So let's go back to our original folder here. Let's just go into this and let's zip this. So let's zip this first and let's re-upload it. Upload some file, more file. Let's upload the zip file. And then let's re-download that zip file as free. And first of all, Chrome ain't gonna complain. And then second of all, if you go into there, you see that the zip file has a Sona identifier, but not a SmartScreen because the zip ain't an executable in that way. And if we extract this, so let's just delete the, let's go to downloads and just delete the original one. So it ain't there anymore, it's just a zip, and then I just extract it, extract here. You'll see that the exe file doesn't have the Sona identifier or SmartScreen, and then if you run it, it just straight up runs. So yeah, that's one way to get around just the SmartScreen by just compressing it and then giving the target instructions to uncompress for security reasons. Maybe even throwing in a password for the zip file just to get rid of signature detections in terms of zip. If it's encrypted, it's harder. Yeah. Not sure I have much more to come for you guys or to show you guys today. Any other suggestions? I'm running out of ideas. I'll be straight up honest with you guys. I'm totally running out of ideas to do every Sunday. I think doing dev work is great, but I feel that I'm reaching out to a smaller audience group when I'm doing heavy development stuff. So I want to do more of this, doing general stuff. Awesome little session, right? I do like to keep it short. That is true for sure. Yeah, I'll spend the next week trying to come up with something to do next Sunday. Yeah, that's the struggle right now. We could totally do lateral movement. Actually, I thought about that. There's this sharp tool called Sharp Move and Sharp RDP who utilizes automated remote desktop sessions to run stagers. So we could totally look into that. How you could do sort of I could always cover the basic lateral movement techniques, but I think Sharp Move, Sharp RDP in general is pretty cool. So we could definitely look into that. Actually, I'm noting that down for sure. That might definitely come up next time. More stealthy things than there has been some production and some more post-exploitation for sure. I know Mimic, not this ain't stealthy though, but I know Mimikat's recently managed to add the functionality of a recently discovered bug where I think it was SVC host or remote desktop client keeping your creds in plain text memory when they're active. Something stupid like that nobody had seen before. There's definitely stuff to look at there. I just feel that a lot of I would have to share specific stuff, and because a lot of the other stuff is very common, and you know, I'm not saying it's like general know-how for everybody, but there's so many great blog posts. You know, I could definitely, yeah, I could try to find something a bit specific. Might look into Sharp Move for sure. How to properly use Sharp Move, test it, and show. Yeah, maybe give you guys like a proper cheat sheet, how it works and stuff. So I could definitely use show you guys some initial access techniques. I do have a very cool one that I want to show you, but at the same time I don't want to burn it, right? So we'll see. Maybe I'll show it because I'm in this. Yeah, I'm not going to write about it, so it's going to be pretty hard to find if you're looking for specifically. So I could definitely share it. It involves macros and you know, really making the defense work to find out where that initial payload came from in terms of like the external source. And this also involves using some of the shortcut techniques I showed you. And DLL side loading. Actually, it brings together everything I talked about today and a little more that initial access stuff. So I could definitely look into that as well. But it looks like you guys want more general, you know, top level stuff around general techniques and how we approach stuff. I'm gonna try my best to give you that. Obviously, I don't want to give away techniques that we use actively. Afraid of them getting burned. Yeah. Sounds great. Sounds like a plan, right? Sounds like a deal. Thank you so much. I seen a lot of new nicknames today, so I didn't. PSV Netherlands is here. Haven't seen that nickname before. The Joker as well, coming from the TrustedSec Discord. Haven't seen that before. The rest of you, I think I recall being in the stream before, so it's awesome to see some new faces. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining in. I really appreciate it. I'll upload this video to YouTube, so you can go rewatch it if you missed something, or if you just joined in, or yeah, if you joined in late. Next Sunday, next time, so that's 3 p.m. EST. It's 9 p.m. If you're in Stockholm or London or Central Europe. It's around 9 p.m. Oh yeah, so 9 p.m. Yeah. Be sure to join the TrustedSec Discord if you haven't. It's a real shame. There's a lot going on in the TrustedSec Discord. I am a member of a lot of Discords. I'm not saying this only because I work at TrustedSec, but in general, the quality of the content and the you know, the discussions we have in this Discord is way higher than a lot of other Discord groups I'm in. So if you want high quality stuff, be sure to join. We have pretty much channels for everything. Dave, Mr. Hacking Dave from Trusted, the CEO, is there a lot. He's active there. So yeah. Thank you so much for joining in. See you next Sunday, same time. Peace out.